Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. This is Abdul Al-Kabir, Sultan of the Empire of Morocco, the legitimate sovereign of the Moorish Empire, as distinguished from a fraudulent claimant known as Kendon Tumbleweed Bey, the know-nothing, weak puppet on behalf of Impact 2.0 and Jermaine Diaz Spencer. It's not going to work, guys. It's best for you to just stand down and surrender. At any rate, today we'll be discussing Resolution 1654. Uh, it's a very important resolution to review. It's been um, on my mind to discuss this resolution because it's reaffirming Resolution 1541, or should I say 1514, which is obviously the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, in which it calls for the complete decolonization and without any further delays. Um, so, without any further ado, we're just going to go straight into this document because it's a very important document to examine. Um, Keeping in mind that we're not interested in all the nonsensical extras that we had experienced through Impact 2.0. The idea uh, is to complete the decolonization process. That's the idea. Therefore, we should be taking a linear path to the completion of said goal, rather than all these pit stops and going in circles and coming back around and just wasting time with tomfoolery, which is why I absolutely view it as a controlled opposition operation. Controlled opposition operation. Federal operation. Allegedly, it's just my consideration because of the delaying. We're being delayed. We had been delayed. There's no way that after June 8th, 2024, we should not have been entering into diplomatic relations with foreign nations rather than waste time doing all the things that they or he demanded for us to do, because it was a demand, a slick demand, right? Under the auspices of, oh, I'm just a consultant. Just consulting. No, no, no. That was a good one, though, sir. But you slick as hell. Slick oil salesman. So, 1654, the situation with regard to the implementation of the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, which is being conducted by who? The General Assembly. Who is the General Assembly? Or what is the General Assembly? Anyone else? Or anyone want to take a stab at it?
Take that, man. It's all the 193 countries.
Mm-hmm. The member states of the United Nations.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, I believe the number is somewhere between 70 and 80%. 70 to 80% of the General Assembly members are uh, indigenous countries, or should I say, um, countries that are under the authority of indigenous people, so-called black and brown people. In other words, the colonial countries, the European countries, are the minority within the General Assembly. That's to be kept in mind. The majority are people like us. And with that, the Blackamoors, right, the Moors of the West, Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa, do not have a seat, right, amongst the affairs of men and women on an international level. We have been absolutely casted out. We have been absolutely placed in a dark closet in the corner somewhere. We have been absolutely placed in a shallow grave. And All nations, not only are they aware, but they are complicit, potentially, allegedly. Um, so it is incumbent upon us as uh, the Moors of the West, excuse me, to continue to raise the question of Morocco. Anything else other than that is notwithstanding and is repugnant to our sovereignty and independence. So as I continue recalling the declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples contained in its resolution 1514 of 14 December 1960, bearing in mind the purposes and principles of that declaration, recalling in particular paragraph 5 of the declaration providing that what immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence. Have the Moors attained independence?
No, we haven't.
Oh, no, we have not.
Well, if you leave it to the black man, we have, because they celebrate Juneteenth. That's the Black Independence Day with no fireworks. Give me a break. Yes, I got something for the black man. It's coming. Um, we have not achieved independence. But then the question is, are we a trust territory or a non-self-governing territory? Are we a non-self-governing territory?
Yes.
We are.
Half and half?
Sister Valerie said yes. Who else said something?
Vice.
What was
Yes.
your answer? What did you say?
Yes, we are.
Okay, anyone else? We got one that said, well, both of them said yes. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Don't be scared. If you're scared, go to church. Anyone else? Yes and no. Why do I say no? Who determines the status of non-self-governing territory? Officially on the record. I could hear the Jeopardy jingle playing them in the back of my head.
Islam, I would say the United Nations.
Thank you. Well, well, that's not specific. An organ of the United
Je-
Nations. Which organ of the United Nations?
C-24.
That's correct.
Decolonization Committee.
Yep, the C-24. They are who uh recognize officially on the record upon a petition. Right? So no from that regard, but yes from the regard that we are non-self-governing territories because no, the Moors are not self-governed. The black man, the black nation, let me say that, because that includes the woman and the child. The so-called black nation, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the only nation on planet Earth that is being governed by a foreign entity or a foreign nation or a foreign corporation. The only ones. Nigerians are governed by Nigerians. Jamaicans are governed by Jamaicans. Right? Um, Perhaps not necessarily the only ones. I would say those who are subject to naturalization. So all the Moors that are subject to naturalization, whether in the United States or in Germany, are being governed by a foreign nation. That's more accurate. Because you got black people in Germany, but they're being governed by uh, so-called white Germans. You see, no different than here. So Germany is a non-self-governing territory because the Moors in that territory are not governing their own territory. but they're not recognized through the C-24 as a non-self-governing territory. You see, but the heart of the empire is Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa, Morocco of the farthest west, over here. As such, then it makes sense that the so-called Black Americans, the Moors of Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa, shall and should be the ones to rise up and uplift the rest of their brothers and sisters in the rest of those territories, such as those that are signatories to the Treaty of Madrid or the Act of Algeciras, Germany, Great Britain, Spain, Italy, etc. It's Black people in all those territories. And especially in Germany, our relics or statues and other items are displayed. They weren't destroyed, they are displaying it. They destroyed many of those statues and relics and things here in the West. They destroyed buildings. You tell us that you erected this beautiful, majestic Colossus building just for the World Fair. And when the World Fair was over, you destroyed it. Or it burned somehow mysteriously. No, that's not it. That they destroyed our stuff, but kept some of it as well, such as the White House. They kept that. They didn't build the White House. Why is the modern architecture or any architecture after that time does not model after those buildings? Think about that. You have building blocks. You know what I'm saying? It's like there are a bunch of boxes. The Americans build as boxes. We build in circular, if you will, type of architecture, arches and domes. You see, because it carries sound, right? High frequency sound. Whereas a squared building doesn't carry sound because the sound obviously would come to a dead end because it's squared off. So that square stops the flow of the high frequency sound. Whereas a arch carries the sound. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, I'm getting off the point. The point being is that we, the Black man who has become a Moor, let me rephrase that. The Black man who has become aware of his nationality or his true identity as Moor or Moroccan has a duty and obligation to recognize himself, herself, ourselves first as a non-self-governing territory. We don't leave it up to the C-24. We're the Moors. With all this treaty power and authority, we have to first come to the realization. This is where we're talking about achieving or obtaining knowledge of self. Without knowledge of self, we cannot progress because it would interrupt with unity. See, if at the very least, if we had unity, nothing matters. If we're united as Black people or if we're united as Moors, the same effect will happen. We will decolonize. Difference is if we unite as a Black man, as Black people, I should say, guess what we would be forcing them to do? We would be forcing them to tell us the truth, which means that we'll come back to the knowledge of self anyway. We'll end up being Moors again because they're going to have to tell us. So either way, it doesn't matter as long as we unite. If we unite as Moors, then okay, they don't have to tell us as we find out on our own and we moved on that accord. But if we unite as Black people, then okay, they're going to have to tell us because we're going to force their hands to tell us. They're going to have to tell us. Point being is that there is no other more formidable enemy for the colonial powers than the Moors. No one can neutralize the colonial powers like the Moors can. That's why it's such a effort to neutralize us by way of robbing us of our identity. So the true purpose or definition, or should I say, the true understanding of three-fifths of human being is not voting. I swear those impact study sessions are getting weirder and weirder and weirder over time. Disregard the idea of voting, though it may have a place, but it's irrelevant. Why is the voting concept of three-fifths of human beings irrelevant? Can someone um, exercise their intellectual capacities to answer this question? Why does voting not the of three-fifths of human being as it relates to the voting concept? Why is that irrelevant? Someone, please. Why is it irrelevant?
I would consider the gerrymandering aspect of it. For every 5 so-called black votes, only 3 are counted.
But why is it irrelevant is the question, good brother. Why is it irrelevant? Because it's irrelevant. That concept, viewing the three-fifths human being concept as voting is my point. That's irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? That's the question. I appreciate you attempting to answer, but the direct question is let's just say, why is voting irrelevant? Let's just put it that way. Let's keep it even more simpler. Why is voting irrelevant for the black man?
Can I take a
Well,
guess at it too?
Anyone, the floor is open.
Okay, because I believe it has nothing to do with human rights and what we believe in ourselves.
Okay. All right. Now we're getting somewhere.
I was going to say basically the same thing. It has nothing to do with human beings.
Well, not human beings. It has nothing to do with us. It
Yeah,
has to do with human beings, but the
yeah,
citizens of the country. Because the people got to have a right to vote. Right? But why is that
right.
irrelevant to us? That's the question. And the sister she's closer to the answer. Okay, let me put it like this. Let's use Trump. He'll be a great example because all the people hate him, right? They think he's the most racist. They think he's more racist than Biden. And Biden had the 92 crime bill that locked hundreds of thousands of black people up. Political hanging. KKK political hanging. But that gets swept under the rug and people focus on Trump and the Central Park Five and all that foolishness. Okay. So they hate his guts, right? Because he's an absolute racist. Okay. Who voted him in?
We did.
Okay, then. That's why it's irrelevant. On the other hand, I see Biden as the absolute most racist because he has a perpetual law that keeps hanging brothers year after year. He did something which was actually in complicity, a conspiracy with the Bush CIA regime, right? That implemented Operation Iran Contra, in which they funded the rebels of Nicaragua by doing what? And pumping drugs into the black communities. Oh. And then 10 years later, here comes the crime bill. Make it make sense. Is that a coinky dink? That now that you let 10 years pass and the black man has gotten used to this drug game, right? Has mastered it from an economic perspective. And now they're locking them up for the same drugs that they pumped in. That's a conspiracy. That's a conspiracy against who? The black man. And it's a perpetual one. They still have drugs and they still have that law. That's racist. Don't tell me about what someone said. At any rate, the point being is this. You voted him in. You voted Obama in. You wanted to vote Hillary Clinton in. And she's on the record for saying that um, Margaret Sanger is her mentor. She loves Margaret Sanger. Well, Margaret Sanger is basically the female David Duke of the KKK. But that also gets swept under the rug. No one hears about that. The media does not focus on that. So therefore, it's not on the consciousness of the people. So therefore, they're not going to view her as racist. You see, it's always media manipulation. The media is a very powerful tool. That's why Noble Ali said that we need our own media to control the narrative, our own narrative. And that's the reason why we're trying to implement the media kit to control the narrative as it relates to the awareness of the raising of the question of Morocco and its sovereignty and independence. But nonetheless, I'm talking about the voting, the irrelevancy of the voting, because what you're doing, every time you vote a president into office, right? You're participating. Every time you vote, you're participating in your own oppression. I mean, it's not like you're voting in a president that's going to give you reparations. It's not like you're voting in a president that's going to give you sovereignty and independence. They're not going to give it to you. It's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility. We have to take that responsibility. And it starts with not voting. And instead, focus on your own political affairs of becoming self-reliant. Regain your dignity, for crying out loud, instead of constantly voting them in. That's why it's irrelevant. Does that make sense? Does anyone understand what I said? Or are there any questions to what I just said?
Makes plenty sense to me.
So what is the proper concept of view the 3/5 of human being then? I want Jermaine to hear this. He needs to listen. He needs to learn. He's on some other stuff. I stopped watching since 165. I just don't watch the Impact study sessions no more. Never have since 165. I was done with it after that. All that gerrymandering and Jasmine Crockett and that stuff is irrelevant. 3/5 of human being as it relates to the voting concept, irrelevant. Why? What is the proper concept of the 3/5 of human beings that makes it relevant for us as a people to achieve our sovereignty and independence? What is the 3/5 of human being? Any Moorish Americans on here? Because it's the Moorish Americans who taught this. Elihu Pleasant Bay is one of the people who pointed it out. Okay, crickets. And I've mentioned it before. You're a 3/5 of human being because you're missing two out of 5 elements that make you a human being. Does anyone recall me saying that and what the 5 elements are? All right.
Nationality,
Say it again.
nationality, and what? Culture.
Divine creed. So it would be your physical body, your spirit, your soul, your nationality, and your divine creed. Those are the 5 elements. What can they not take away from you? Your body, your spirit, and your soul. What can they take away from you, and what did they take away from you? I'm listening.
A nationality.
And what else?
And divine creed.
Exactly. Which then puts you in a status of what? 3/5 of human being, which means now you're in a status of what? Lack of what? Lack of what? Lack of what?
identity. Identity.
No. Yeah, but no. Lack of identity, yes. But lack of knowledge of self. So because now you are in the status of a 3/5 human being because you lack knowledge of self, because you think that you're black, and you think that you're whatever other religion and whatever other culture, and you think that you're from Africa and you're supposed to be wearing dashikis, when dashikis were made in China, dashikis is not an African custom. That's a Black American thing, and the Chinese capitalized off of it because they are the ones who manufactured it. That's lack of knowledge of self. That's tomfoolery. That is the sin, because you're not honoring your foremothers and forefathers, so that the earthland could be, you know how that goes. That that biblical saying. You're not honoring your mothers and forefathers. They are not black, and they didn't wear dashikis. They wore fezzes and pantaloons and garbs and stuff. Not no daggone dashikis. That's the proper concept in the 3/5 of human being. Not no damn voting. Care nothing about voting. I care about decolonization. In order for you to decolonize, you need to know who you are. In order to achieve unity, you need to know who you are. So if you got 50 million people that are in the status of 3/5 of human being because they lacking their nationality and their divine creed, this is what you got. This is the results of it. People voting. So it's irrelevant. What is it, like 3 votes for 5 people or whatever? Who cares? Who cares? That's your fault, black man. That's your fault. You shouldn't even be concerned about voting for them anyway. Why are you so proud of my next door neighbor? You so proud? I'm a voter. I vote. I'm a voter. I vote. Okay, well, you keep voting for the oppression. You keep voting for the subjugation. You keep voting for colonialism. That's absolutely irrelevant. No one cares. No one should care about that. You should only care about achieving your sovereignty and independence, which then means you would need to become now 5/5 of a human being. I mean, at the very least, regain your nationality, for crying out loud. Because black is not a nationality. It's merely a color. And we're not even black. We're copper colored, brown, and stuff like that. Right? And they're not white. They're like pink. Right? And beige and stuff like that. So come on. All right? That's the proper concept. And so this is the reason why the Moors or the black man cannot recognize himself as what? Or his territory as being non-self-governed. So if you don't recognize yourself as being non-self-governed to then turn around and do something about it, then who else will? You expect the C-24 to do it? The responsibility and the obligation falls on the dependent people. You have to come to the table and say, we're here to make a proper claim. This is nefarious. This ain't cool. We are seeking and demanding a change collectively as one. Islam, do we understand what it is that I'm saying?
Wow.
Islam.
Right? Okay. Now it goes on to say, to transfer all powers to the peoples, power to the people. As the Black Panther chant, power to the people. Islam and power to the people. That's what I say. That's what the AG say. That's what we say. Impact 2.0 don't like that. That's how I opened up the email with my veto. Islam and power to the people. Oh, he didn't like that. He's a fed. Anyway, to transfer all power to the peoples of those territories without any conditions or reservations, in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without any distinction as to race, creed, or color, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. So it says, recalling in particularly paragraph 5 of the Declaration, providing that, right? So it's pointing back to what does it say? Paragraph 5. So here we are, Resolution 1514. Where is it? Okay, right here. Minimize that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says paragraph 5. What is it? Paragraph 5 of the preamble? Or section 5? Yeah, section 5. I guess they consider it paragraph 5. So you see it here. Immediate steps. We see it? Immediate steps shall be taken in trust in non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence to transfer all powers to the peoples of those territories without any conditions or reservations in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire without
Any delay.
Well, not no.
Without any delay.
Without uh, I missed it. Hold on, where am I? She said without any. I know, right? It needs to be without any delay. Without any distinction as to race, creed, or color, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. So it's reaffirming or pointing out paragraph 5 or section 5, article 5, however you want to put it. Okay? Then it goes on to say, noting with regret that, with a few exceptions, the provisions contained in the aforementioned paragraph of the Declaration have not been carried out. So the General Assembly came together and said, hold up, hold up, whoa, whoa, whoa. We put this resolution together back in last year, because this is in 1961, as you see here, 27 November 1961, right? The resolution 1514 came out in 1960, right? Let's see the month. The month was 14 December, right? So that's basically a year later, right? So they ain't wait 2, 3, 5 years, a year later. Like, hold up, we're not moving forward with this resolution. What's going on, colonial countries, right? So they're noting with regret that, with a few exceptions, that the provisions contained have not been carried out. Then it says, noting that, contrary to the provisions of paragraph 4 of the Declaration, armed action and repressive measures continue to be taken in certain areas with increasing ruthlessness against dependent peoples, depriving them of their prerogative to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence. Right? So there was armed action and repressive measures, right, taking place against those dependent peoples, which it was across borders, right? So that would be as an example, and we probably I probably should have looked up one of those conflicts, but I can assure you that it's across borders, meaning, let's as an example, let's say the French government, right, attacking Haiti for the Haitians seeking independence. Whereas, as a reminder, the United States and the Empire of Morocco, there's a shared jurisdiction. There is no crossing of borders. The United States is right here with us. That's the example that I'm pointing out as it relates to this, these repressive measures that they have been taking. But we can still see it in the 1960s with countless assassinations of our leaders and the oppressive measures set forth by the United States government. There was armed attacks, right? If you're gonna kill Martin Luther King, if you're gonna kill Malcolm X, Il Malik, if you're gonna kill Noble Drew Ali, if you're gonna kill Fred Hampton, William O'Neill. William O'Neill, how you doing, sir? The Fed agent, huh? Who infiltrated the Black Panther Party to neutralize the uh, Chicago chapter, I believe, with Fred Hampton as the leader. They always use us against us, and we, those of us who have that shark spirit, character, right? Non-righteous, treacherous, conniving, manipulative, deceptive. People, the Moors with those character traits are easily susceptible to becoming feds against their own and infiltrate, right? It is self. The biggest war is self, not the so-called white man. It's your own people. All skinfolk ain't kinfolk. And we have experienced and seen it since 1 October 2025. Let me repeat that. All skinfolk ain't kinfolk. Deeply concerned that, contrary to the provisions of paragraph 6 of the Declaration, acts aimed at the partial or total disruption of national unity. Let me read that again, because y'all ain't hearing me. Y'all ain't hearing me. So the General Assembly is deeply concerned that, contrary to the provisions of paragraph 6, let's look at paragraph 6. What does paragraph 6 say? Someone want to read paragraph 6 for me? Of resolution 1514. What does it say? Somebody read that for me, please.
Any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations.
Okay. Does that not sound familiar? What do you feel when you read that? What does your memory of the history of the Black nation trapped in American jurisdiction reminds you, brings to your mind regarding this particular paragraph? Any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity. I'm listening. We spoke about it just a minute ago. It's a fraction. It's a fraction. I mean, I don't know how much, how many hints I can give. I mean, I'm basically giving you the answer when I say it's a fraction and that we just spoke on it.
3/5.
Thank you. Goodness. 3/5 of human being. Again, nothing to do with no damn voting. It is the stripping of your nationality and your divine creed. So by stripping your nationality and your divine creed, relegating you to 3/5 of human being is an attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity. Because without your knowledge of self, you cannot have unity. And of course, there's been other mechanisms, impediments, and denials set forth by the US government to disrupt, and not even partially, total disruption. Total disruption, not partial. In its full totality. Today, there's such a state of confusion. FBA, Pan-African, Indian, Mer, Mer, M-U-U-R, Mer, there's more. Then it's the same people. So you got people saying Mer versus Moors. Oh, God. No, it's Mer and Moors versus the colonists. How about that? Why you got to maintain this narrative of black on black crime, this family feud? Why has it got to be Mer versus Moors? Why can't it be Mers and Moors, which it's the same people anyway, versus the colonists? How about that? Don't that sound a little bit better? Anyone tell me yay? Anyone tell me nay? Does that not sound better?
Sounds a lot better.
So we are perpetuating. What are we perpetuating? The total disruption of our national unity. The coup d'etat of October is perpetuating the total disruption of our national unity. Germain is pushing the disruption of our a total disruption of our national unity. We do it to ourselves. Carter G. Woodson and the miseducation of the Negro said, and I paraphrase, as long as you have control over the minds of the people, you no longer have to force them to do anything. They will do it themselves. Mm-hmm. He wasn't lying. So their implementation became residual by us perpetuating it year in and year out, the generation after generation. That includes voting for them. Democrat, Republican, who cares? Who's worse, the Crips or the Bloods? Okay, that's your answer for the that's the answer to the question. Who's worse, Democrats or Republicans? It's the same. It's two wings on the same damn bird, which also does what? It's the total disruption of the national unity as a whole, not just amongst the Moors or black people, but white people too. They're over there divided, arguing about some Democrat versus Republican. That's nonsensical. It's tomfoolery, but it's the mechanisms of the U.S. government to maintain this to maintain the disunity of the entire citizenry, starting with the Moors. Every attack on the Moors, every attack on the black man, it always results in what? What's that term? Collateral damage. It bleeds over into their nation. So you pump drugs into the black community, white people end up as crackheads too. It wasn't an attack on white people, it was an attack on black people. You disrupt the national unity of the Moors, it disrupts the national unity of white people too. Whatever you do to us, it happens to you. It bleeds over into your society. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. So that's Article 6 or Paragraph 6 as we continue, right? So they have perpetuated the total disruption of the national unity and territorial integrity are still being carried out in certain countries in the process of decolonization. Now, mind you, that in the time we weren't undergoing the process of decolonization, but the principles still apply. See, the United States was smart. They got ahead of it. Before we even start thinking about denationalization, they had already, before we even started thinking about decolonization, they had already got ahead of the total disruption of our national unity. As such, we over here begging for civil rights and integration. And so therefore, because of that, the marching and the praying and the crying and the complaining, all right, we'll just go ahead and integrate you into this burning house. And then MLK regretted it later on. Convinced that further delay in the application of the Declaration is a continuing source of international conflict. So the General Assembly is convinced that further delay in the application of the Declaration is a continuing source of international conflict and disharmony, seriously impedes international cooperation, and is creating an increasingly dangerous situation in many parts of the world, which may threaten international peace and security. But please read this one right here. The next paragraph, emphasizing, what does that say? Or anyone, if Buck is not available. Anyone, please read that part right there.
I was reading. I didn't know I was on. I didn't know my audio was off. Sorry. Emphasizing that inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence.
Which paragraph is that? We've talked about this many times because I've always stated for the record that that's my favorite paragraph. I'm just realizing that they're addressing it as a paragraph. I thought it was a article. I would have said Article 3, but let's use the proper terminology. It's Paragraph 3. Okay. Paragraph 3 of what? Resolution 1514. So let's go to paragraph 3. My favorite paragraph of this resolution. 3.
Inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence.
Period. Never. It is to never happen. But so resolution 1654 says what? Emphasizing. They placed an emphasis on that paragraph. Right? So it doesn't matter how clumsy you are. And we're not clumsy. We are certainly competent in the things that we've done, but we're also definitely not to the level of everyone else. Right? We're further ahead, much further ahead than the average Black man and Moorish American, but still behind as it relates to those who have been doing this for decades and centuries. Right? Though the empire may be ancient, the government is new. The state is an ancient continuing state that has been in a shallow grave, requiring for the government to be reinstated to bring the state out of a shallow grave. That's what we did on June 8, 2024, when Abdul Al-Kabir took the oath of office before all the Moroccan nationals and the watching world. That hasn't changed. It still remains. No one is going to punk me out of the spot. If I did something wrong, I would own up to it. There is no need for an impeachment. I would stand down. I'll go sit down somewhere. Someone else take over this headache. But you're not going to misrepresent, lie, deceive, manipulate me out of the position. We're not doing that part. That's not happening, Captain. We're going to fight to the end. And I have the bandwidth to go the miles. And you're not going to win. So it's best for them to stand down and just surrender. Right? But they have placed an emphasis on inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness, that it should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. They cannot delay our independence. Not according to this resolution or resolution 1514. 1, solemnly reiterates and reaffirms. So the General Assembly is solemnly reiterating and reaffirming the objectives and principles enshrined in the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples contained in its Resolution 1514 of 14 December 1960. It is solemnly reiterating and reaffirming it. Why? Because they're not, the colonial countries are not operating in good faith to help the dependent people, the colonized people, to achieve their full independence. Why do you think that's the case? Anyone want to take a shot at it? Why are they delaying independence, the independence of the non-self-governing territories and those colonized indigenous people who are seeking a full measure of sovereignty and independence? Why do you think? This is an opinionated, well, there's a real, I guess it's an opinion, but I'll give you my opinion. I believe it to be the fact, but I can't prove it. So I guess it's left up to being an opinion. So let me hear other people's opinion. Why do you think that certain colonial countries are delaying the independence of colonized people?
We have
That's
too
a
much
good question
power.
for the floor. Was that?
We have too much power.
No. I'm not talking about us. I'm just saying in general, because this is not just talking about us. It's talking about the landscape as a whole of colonized people, right? They're still delaying. That's why they're reaffirming everything in this resolution. So why do you think that countries are delaying the justice of um, Western Sahara, as an example, so on and so forth, or any non-self? Because remember, the non-self-governing territories has been in that status for like 19, 20 years, however long, which means they're delaying, they're stalling them out. Sounds familiar, huh? Stall. That's the tactic. That hold on real quick. That's the tactic. Stall them out. Delay. Stall them out. And that's the reason I said we are taking the direct linear path of decolonization. No more of that ANPAC 2.0 nonsense that relegates us to basically being stalled out and delayed. That's the strategy. That's the tactic. We see it on an international level for the past several decades. And it has been happening within the empire since 2024. Islam,
Wow. Stall, deny, and defend.
that's the tactic. But why? Give me another answer to why are they doing that to everyone on planet Earth? Well, not everyone, but the remaining few that are seeking to decolonize. Give me your opinion. Just give me an opinion.
I would say that they don't want to give up their power, their political seats,
Correct.
and
Correct.
the with it based on the position of our subjugation as a people.
That's not the
That,
answer that I'm looking for, but I could accept that opinion and that perspective. Anyone else? That was
related
a
to
good one.
directly here, I would say taxes.
Say it again.
Taxes.
Well, no,
In,
I'm not. Again, don't think
in,
about it. It's not about. It's not. I'm not speaking directly about us. Again, I'm speaking about. Okay, so there's 19. Let's say it this way. There's 19 non-self-governing territories who have not achieved the full decolonization yet. They're full independence. Why are they stalling them out? Let's put it that way. Let's talk about them. Why are they stalling them out?
they try to prevent a domino effect.
There you go. That's the answer I was looking for.
They trying to prevent a domino effect. Yeah.
There you go. Because
This
then
one,
it creates a trend. And if all of them start to decolonize, then guess who the hell is next?
Empire
The Empire of Morocco.
of Morocco.
There you
Islam.
go. Islam, brother Al-Kabir. Great answer. That's what I was looking for. They're trying to prevent a domino effect. They don't want it to become a thing in a trend that would lead to the Empire of Morocco and the Moors in America. Sick stuff. These people are crazy. But it was written, and there's nothing they can do. I mean, they can do all this and that and have their little bureaucratic red tape. But listen, it is a divine first. It's first, Jay. It's a divine. It's first, and then national. Not national and then divine. That's nonsensical. It's divine first. You always put God first. Allah, whatever you want to subscribe to, because it was divine for us uh, to even be able to um, uh, remember who we are as Moors, and that honor, respect, adoration, and all that goes to the illustrious Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Period. We got to thank that good brother, because without him, we would still be in a perpetual state of mind of blackness, black out. See, that's why you're black. Got nothing to do with your skin color. It has to do with your mental state. 3/5 of human being. Back to that again. Your nationality has been stripped, so your knowledge of self is blacked out. That's why you're black. You're blacked out in the head. You're buried in a shallow grave. It's all psychological and in your subconscious. So again, you see how we come back to the proper concept and context of what the 3/5 of human being is. It has nothing to do with no damn voting, though it may serve a purpose, but that's an irrelevant concept and perspective to look at it as. It's absolutely irrelevant. Shouldn't be voting for them anyway. So, like, why are you voting? Why are you not instead working through the process of achieving your own independence and vote for your own head of state and your own uh, 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 politicians versus continuously, perpetually, residually voting for your oppression. And then every administration, you're complaining about something. It's always a complaint about something and somebody. The three-fifths of human being concept is very important to understand in its proper concept and context. It has nothing to do with no damn voting. It has to do with your nationality being stripped from you that placed you in a black state of mind, which then now does what? It causes a what? It causes a total disruption of the national unity. Because without knowledge of self, you can't unite, as we see it happen, which is very peculiar because within the empire, we have achieved knowledge of self, but I guess the Negro energy, the Negro character still remains, right? You can bring the Moors to their nationality, but you can take the Negro out of them. And of course, that's not everyone, but it's a great deal of us. We see it happening with the Moorish Americans. We see it happen all the time amongst ourselves. There's always a righteous side, a righteous group of people, and then you have a treacherous group of people. There's always an opposition amongst self. Always. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were beefing, weren't they? They weren't getting along. Malcolm X finally had to come to the point to say, okay, nah, man, we need to unite. And then they finally did. Until he came to that wisdom, they were going at it with each other, especially Malcolm to him, because, Malcolm was fiery. He didn't play. I carry that energy and trait. That's what, and it's off-putting in today's society because everything today is politically correct and it's all emotional and everyone is in their emotions. Everyone is sensitive. The men have been LGBTQ sized, if you will. They have been placed in a feminine state of mind. Thank you, Obama. Thank you, sir. Barry Soetoro. They have feminized the black man so now he doesn't have thick skin. Very emotional. Very sensitive. Yeah, I'm talking to the man. I'm talking to you men. I'm always talking to the men because the men are the leaders of the society. They are the ones that are meant to, they were designed, built to protect and lead the women and children. So if the man is too busy wearing bonnets and man purses and worried about designer clothes and LV and, Michael Kors and True Religion and Laker fan and Patriots fan and all this entertainment and nonsensical tomfoolery that's just serves as absolute distractions, then that leaves the women and the children subject to abuses. And that is the reason why the world does not respect the black man. So I guess this class still has an element of that, Buck. Okay, all right. Paragraph 2 calls upon states concerned to take action without further delay, with a view to the faithful application and implementation of the declaration. So the General Assembly is calling upon all the states concerned. That includes the United States. Everyone knows that they are merely administrators until the day that the Moors wake up and take back the White House. Because that building is not their building. They did not build it. We had government officials in those buildings governing the vast estate. They were pulled out, removed, killed. When you hear or see those pictures, there's a famous picture. I got to look it up. I don't even know what it's called, but If I do a good job at describing it, you would know what I'm talking about because it's very famous. It's in all our heads. The black guy that's sitting somewhere on something, and all you see is him from the back, and he's got scars all over his back from being whipped and stuff, slashes all over his back. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yes or no?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay, right. It's that a slave? I mean, it's just a picture, right? You can take a picture and flip it in and say anything. Oh, he's a slave. Is he a slave? Uh, yay, nay, I don't know. What I can say is this: there's a consideration. There's something else that can be considered. See, it's all about discernment, critical thinking. You don't just accept it because they said it. No man can go on for 9 minutes. No human being can go for 9 minutes without breathing. Period. Unless you're Aquaman. And even he can go further than that. No human being can go 9 minutes without breathing and still be able to talk as well. Wow, he is a super mutant hero. You can't breathe and you can talk. For 9 minutes, face down, knee on the back of your neck. Discernment, critical thinking, psychological operations. Look up Indeed. Go on Indeed and pull up crisis actors or crisis actor. Go get it. Thank me in advance because you can go get a job. $200-300 a scene. Why do you have a position called crisis actors if you don't have people out here acting out crisis? Psychological operations, problem, reaction, solution. The problem: someone couldn't breathe for 9 minutes, and he happens to be a black man while talking too at the same time. Reaction: crying, the white man, the devil, police brutality, they're always attacking us. The black man, the black woman crying, emotionally charged and involved, right? And then the reaction: BLM. Solution: BLM. Black Lives Matter. A hijack from the real BLM, Black Liberation Movement. BLM is ran by LGBTQ members. And a so-called settlement of X millions of dollars. And no one that was parading and crying and doing all this got 1 red cent. When is it gonna come to our consciousness that we're being played with, manipulated? Why are we so damn gullible? Why we don't exercise discernment and critical thinking? Why are we so reactionary, so quick to react when we see something on TV and don't sit back and say, hold on, let me examine this. How is it possible for a plane to knock down a whole tower and fall in its own footprint, not break over and fall over
Where
and
you at?
break and destroy other things? It falls in its own footprint. No one says, well, that looks like demolition. No, they just, oh, 9/11. People have been made to be sheeps, following the shepherd straight to the slaughterhouse. Abdul Al-Kabir, Abdul Smith, or Abdul period has always been the black sheep. I question everything. Question the narrative. After all, who is telling us this? The same oppressors. So why? So how is it sensible for me to accept his word just because he said it? We got to start thinking and stop reacting. Half of these, half of these so-called crises are actually psychological operations, psyops. They keep playing with us. and we keep falling for it, such as my good brother neighbor. So it calls upon all the states concerned to take action without further delay with a view to the faithful application and implementation of the declaration. United States, you're up next. Step 3, decides to establish a special committee. So they established a special committee of 17 members to be nominated by the President of the General Assembly at the present session. So it was nominated in that present session, which was in 1961. 4, request the special committee to examine the application of the declaration, to make suggestions and recommendations on the progress, right? So the special committee is supposed, this is why, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a compound under the leadership of Chief Curry, right? A compound out of Jamaica. Chief Curry had the committee, the C-24, visit a compound. They had photo ops. Chief Curry was rocking the fez. Good looking out, good brother. And it was based on a treaty that they had with Great Britain. But it appears to be more of a free association type of a status rather than absolute sovereignty and independence. You can choose whichever 3. What 3 statuses are there? I'm listening. We've run over this many times, Morris. What's the 3 statuses? Sovereignty and independence. What else?
Free association.
Thank you. And what else?
And
We already been through it. We already dealt with it.
integration.
Thank you very much. No need for integration. Already been through that. We were integrated into a burning house. Ain't no need for free association. We ain't with that either. There's only one status, sovereignty and independence. Right? So it requests the special committee to examine the application of the declaration. So the special committee has to examine the application of the declaration, which is this declaration, 1654 and 1541, 1514 and 1541, but specifically 1514. 1541 is just giving you the 3 options, right? And so to make suggestions and recommendations on the progress and extent of the implementation of the declaration, and to report to the General Assembly at its 17th session. 5, directs the special committee to carry out its task by the employment of all means which it will have at its disposal within the framework of the procedures and modalities which it shall adopt for the proper discharge of its functions. So now at this point is just really SOPs. This is an SOP, standard operating procedures for the committee to implement, Resolution 1514. Paragraph 6, authorizes the special committee to meet elsewhere than at United Nations headquarters, whenever and wherever such meetings may be required for the effective discharge of its functions, in consultation with the appropriate authorities. 7, invites the authorities concerned to afford the special committee their fullest cooperation in carrying out its tasks. 8, requests the trusteeship council, because that's what it really was, the Committee on Information from Non-Self-Governing Territories and the specialized agencies concerned to assist the special committee in its work within their respective fields. And 9, request the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, to provide the special committee with all the facilities and the personnel necessary for the implementation of the present resolution, meaning that there is no excuses. You got your SOP, you got everything at your disposal. Let's get to work. So that was the plenary meeting of 1666, 27 December 1961. It says down here, the President of the General Assembly, in pursuance of the above resolution, appointed the members of the special committee established under paragraph 3 of that resolution at its 1094th plenary meeting on 23 January 1962. The General Assembly took note of that appointment. So what's the appointment? The special committee is composed as follows. Australia, Cambodia, Ethiopia, India, Italy, Madagascar. What happened in Madagascar in 1953? This is my latest proclamation dealing with this treasonous collusion from Jermaine Diaz Spencer and Impact 2.0. What happened in Madagascar in 1953?
That's where the Sultan was exiled to.
Thank you. Gratitude, Wazir Rashid of DMT, the de
Oh,
jure and legitimate Wazir of DMT, whereas Tumbleweed was removed. Period. The shenanigans must stop. The fraudulent activities shall stop. The criminal manslaughter Kendon was removed under a state of emergency pursuant to Article 10 and Article 18 of the Constitution, period. So Madagascar, first Corsica, then Madagascar. Then you got Mali, Poland, Syria. I can't pronounce that. Tanganyika, Tanganyika, Tunisia, Union of Soviet Specialist Republics, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United States of America, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Yugoslavia. 17 members. Islam, short read, that's resolution 1644. And we're seeing that it had to be implemented because of the fact that the colonial countries were not adhering to the previous resolution, which was resolution 1514. So they had to emphasize a certain thing, certain things, right? They had to recall certain things. They had to note regret, right? That the provisions contained in the aforementioned paragraph of the declaration have not been carried out. So now let's look at some. Let's take a look at this conversation I had with ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, I said, tell me about Resolution 1614 of 1961. Buck, you want to read that? Or Rashid?
I got it. United Nations. Okay, where you at? United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1654 was adopted on 27th November 1961 during the 16th session of the General Assembly. Its full title is The Situation with Regard to the Implementation of the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. This resolution is historically significant because it created the UN Special Committee on Decolonization, originally composed of 17 members. The committee's purpose was to monitor and promote implementation of the landmark Resolution 1514, 1960, the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. It later became the Special Committee of 24, C24, after its membership was expanded in 1962.
Okay, pause right there for a second. This resolution is historically significant because it created the UN Special Committee on Decolonization, originally composed of 17 members. The committee's purpose was or is to monitor and promote implementation of the landmark, it was a landmark resolution, 1514 of 1960, the Declaration on the Granting of Independence in Colonial Countries and Peoples, which later, and then it later became, which the special committee later became, or should I say, the special committee later became the Special Committee of 24, C24, after its membership was expanded in 1962. So it's more, at this point, it's clearly much more than just 17 members. But the purpose is to monitor and promote implementation of the landmark resolution 1514. But now the question is, as Moors, because see, this is for everyone that's under a colonial status. But as Moors, are we solely dependent on the Special Committee of C-24? What's your thoughts?
I don't think so. No, you're not.
Why not?
Well, one thing, the Empire of Morocco is out of its shadow grave, right? We are a new government and we're rebuilding, and we have the authority to do what we need to do to rebuild.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Anyone else want to take a stab at it as well? Well, I would say, someone said something?
Yeah. Point of interest. Why I feel like we're not totally dependent on a C-24 committee because we could emit political and social reforms on our own by contracting and contacting other self-governing states. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's similar to what Buck was saying. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. I don't mean to come off arrogant, but it is what it is. It's not arrogance. It's just is what it is. We're the Moors. The Moors of the West. And the world has been complicit in maintaining our subjugation and oppression. It's not by coincidence that the black man has been forgotten. They threw the key away, but we found the key. That's why it's divine. That's why the movement is divine first. We're the Moors. And we are of a very, very powerful, ancient, continuing state. That's the Empire of Morocco. There is no United Nations without the Empire of Morocco. There is no, what is it called? The one before, League of Nations, without the Empire of Morocco. The laws, the language they use is based in Moroccan law. A lot of it comes off the treaties. We just got to bring awareness to our cause. We got to let the world know we're back. We're not subject to your so-called committees, which, by the way, has a lot of bureaucratic red tape on it for that exact reason. For that exact reason. Eventually, I'll do a class on the involvement of Moors dealing with the United Nations and the drafting of some of these articles in the charter itself, even Article 73. Oh, we'll be talking about that. But you see, the black man always got his hands in something, or a Moor, behind the scenes. The so-called white man that you see every day, whether it be Trump, whether it be Macron, whether it be whoever, Netanyahu, whoever, Putin, they're just the middleman. That's middle management. Everyone knows that there's someone behind the scenes. They call him Big Brother. They call him the hidden hand. I don't know if anyone ever heard the term Big Brother. The eye in the sky and all these different terminologies that they use to describe the fact that there's a power behind every head of state. Because all these heads of states are Mamluks working for someone else behind the scenes. In Europe, they're known as the black nobility. We saw this concept in John Wick 3. Go watch John Wick 3 and have your head blown. Because the only way he could get that contract off his head when all these white folks were trying to assassinate John Wick, the only one that can get that contract off his head, that assassination contract, was a Moor in Morocco, so-called Casablanca, White House. He had to cross the burning sand, passed out. Moor picked him up with a camel, took him to the tent, had to cut his finger off. And the Moor said, okay, you're a free man, going back to America. And no one could touch him. There's always somebody behind the scenes, or more behind the scenes. You may continue, brother. The resolution directed the committee to.
The resolution directed the committee to bullet point 1, examine the progress made in implementing Resolution 1514, investigate conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories, receive information from governments and other relevant sources, make recommendations to the General Assembly on accelerating decolonization, report annually on its findings and recommendations.
And what has happened since all that? So the resolution directed the committee to do specific things. Examine the progress made in implementing Resolution 1514. Investigate conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories. But why do they always ignore this colonial territory? You know, they refer to the United States history as pre-colonial history. It's still colonial. It's post-colonial. It's current colonial. What are you talking about? Pre-colonial. It's still a status of colonialism. The world is complicit with the United States to maintain the subjugation and naturalization and oppression and forced assimilation of the Moors in the West. And that's the reason why we can't necessarily depend on any international body. They got upset with me when I said, man, I don't trust the United Nations. Y'all see why, though. I can show why. Or you can't talk like that. They're listening. Shut up. I call it as I see it. It is what it is. See, I'm not the manipulative, this play games guy. I tell you straight like it is. No matter who you are. Antonio Guterres, Trump, whoever. Why are these non-self-governing territories still under the status of non-self-governing territories? And what did not happen? What did I just highlight?
Accelerating decolonization.
Why that didn't happen?
Gatekeeping.
So therefore, it's a legitimate statement. Perhaps that legitimate statement will put pressure on him as the Sultan spoke. See, I'm a resolute person. I don't throw rocks and hide my hand. I'm transparent. I have nothing to hide. I'm told that I'm exposing myself. Exposing what? Who I am? I'm not going to hide who I am. Take me as I am. You don't like me? Too bad. You're going to have to wait till 2031. A lot of people don't like Trump. Too bad. You're going to have to wait till his term of office is over. When is it? 2028? You don't just overthrow me because you don't like me. No, it ain't going to work like that. You're gonna have to wait your turn. Period. So this is the reason why I gotta look at them sideways. So they're supposed to examine the progress made in implementing Resolution 1514. Investigate conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories. Well, this is a colonial territory. They're not investigating the conditions over here. Everyone knows that this is a colonial territory. Let me prove that to you. Let me prove that to you. Where is it? I gotta move things around because of the way my anyway. Let me prove that to you. Resolution 1514. It's in the preamble. Mindful of the determination proclaimed by the peoples of the world, conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of self-determination. Where is it? Recognizing the passionate yearning for freedom in all dependent peoples. Remember, this was enacted in 1960 in the middle of the civil rights movement, which the civil rights movement was a passionate yearning for freedom, right or wrong?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Aware of the increasing conflict resulting from the denial of or impediments in the way of freedom of such peoples, KKK hangings. That's an increasing conflict. Let's see. Convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic, that's not it. Affirming that peoples may for their own ends freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice. Believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible. Where is it? Convinced that all peoples have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory. It must be in the paragraphs. The subjugation of peoples to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation constitutes. Okay, that's a good one. So the subjugation of peoples to alien subjugation, right? We're being subjugated by an alien group of people. You think they don't know that? But there was something here, one of these paragraphs, specifically, it definitely talks directly to the Moors. Inadequacy, all armed actions. I want to prove this to you all. Went too far up. It has to be in the preamble. I'm skimming. Believe it's in the preamble. It reminds in the dignity and worth of the human person and the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of all peoples, and of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction of race, language, or religion, recognizing the passionate yearning for freedom in all dependent peoples and the decisive role of such peoples, aware of the increasing conflicts resulting from the denial of or impediments in the way of freedom of such peoples constitutes a serious threat to the world. The whole concept of denial and impediments, right? That's the oppression. There's everywhere you turn, there's a denial and an impediment. There's a denial and an impediment. It's like a maze that we're in. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement for independence and trust in non-self-governing territories, recognizing that peoples of the world ardently desire the end of colonialism and all its manifestations, right? That's what the civil rights movement was about. Problem is that they didn't know that it was about decolonization. But those who know that that's what it's about. It's just that these people have become 3/5 of human beings. So therefore, they have no knowledge of self and they don't have no knowledge of nothing. Nothing to do with voting. convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples, right? It it impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples. That's one of them. Convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples. Are they not impeding our social, cultural, and economic development as people, as a people dependent upon the American authorities here in America? Is that not the case for the black man? Yes or no?
Yes, it is the case.
So if I can see that, then you think that the United Nations and the competent authorities of planet Earth don't know that and see that? Affirming that peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation based upon the principles of mutual benefit and international law. Believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis, an end must be put to colonialism and all practices of, there you go, that's what I was looking for. Believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crises, an end must be put to colonialism and all practices, not just colonialism. It says put an end. End must be put to colonialism and not or and all practices of what
Segregation and
and what else?
discrimination.
Segregation
Okay.
and discrimination associated
Oh,
with
oh,
with
oh. So you're gonna sit here and tell me, right, that these people don't know that the black man in America, so why aren't you investigating the conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories as it relates to the Moors in the West, when you know good and well, full well, that we have, us too dealt with segregation and then brought into so-called integration based on Resolution 1541, huh? So it's integration. Who chose that status for us?
Martin Luther King?
Is he a government official?
No.
Okay. Who the hell told him? Who the hell told him that we wanted that? We was better off segregated. Because at least we had unity. And it would have grown by now. Oh God, we would have, ain't no telling what we would have been able to accomplish under the status of segregation. But you're not investigating those conditions as it relates to the Moors here. This is a colonial territory. And it's also non-self-governing, but even if you don't want, even if for the record, even though it may not be on the record officially with the C-24, doesn't change the fact that it's a colonial territory, and the people of that territory, which are the Moors, are in a status of non-self-governing or non-governed, self-governed. We're governed, not self-governed. That's the problem. We're governed by a foreign entity. We are prisoners of war, exiled in our own homeland. It is a government in exile. Our state is in exile. Our government is in exile. In American jurisdiction. And everyone, including Antonio Gutierrez of the United Nations, are staying quiet. Everyone is staying quiet. No one is examining or investigating the conditions in this territory as it relates to the black man. This is horrible. It's diabolical. And I shall speak on it. Okay, who feels some way about it? Don't say that. Shut up. Shall say it. Why should I say it? Because it's the truth. I just proved it. And I know the truth hurts. But again, we got to get it out the mud because ain't no one else is going to come give it to us. We got to do it ourselves. We got to bet on ourselves. We got to be self-reliant. And in order to accomplish that, we need unity, loyalty, conformity, and obedience. We don't need coup d'etats, attempted overthrows that failed miserably. We don't need attacks on the head of state. Because if you, black man, if you, Moor, don't recognize and respect your own head of state, then how do you expect for the foreigners, your enemy, your opposition, to recognize and respect your head of state, your empire, your competent authority, your speaker, your chief judge, your prime minister, your attorney general? Because then now that's what you're going to be relegated to do. Vote for who? Trump, Kamala, Biden, whoever, whatever. They are not your people. If you hold a seat, the presidential seat of the United States, whether you're black or orange, blue or yellow, white or green, you're a colonist. So you're constantly voting for your colonization. It's time for you to now reverse that and to start looking towards decolonization. So they don't investigate the conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories as it relates to the Moors in the West. Receive information from governments and other relevant sources. Well, you know the United States ain't going to transmit regularly. We have to do that. Make recommendations to the General Assembly on accelerating decolonization. Well, why these 19 non-self-governing territories are still in the status of non-self-governing territories decades upon decades. Does this say that I should trust them? Does this say that I should trust them? That question is for the floor. Yay or nay, it's all good. Should I trust them?
Nay.
Anyone else? Thank you, Blinken.
No, nay.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
No.
shouldn't trust them. Well, then if I don't trust them and if we don't trust them, then who shall we trust?
We
Who
have to
should we
start
trust?
trusting each other.
Thank you very much, which then means that you have to come under the decree of unity, loyalty, conformity, and obedience, right?
That's right.
But there's a seditious group of pirates who chose the other direction, the treacherous direction, the left path. They chose to lay with the devil. Well, I chose to stand with God. We chose to stand with Allah, the Most High. Whatever you subscribe to. It's not about religion. But there is, without a doubt, a higher power that governs us all. Right? And it was written that we shall inherit the earth. It's a divine movement. But you have your pirate rogue, as he would say, Taliban Moors, that chose treachery, that chose deceit, that chose manipulation, corruption, and treason. We're in a holy war. And all of you who chose the right path are winning. Threatening me with a defunct INS, which, by the way, was dissolved in 2003. ICE has taken over. Now it's ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. It's no longer INS. which there goes the incompetence of them of the radical left, AMPAC 2.0. That's the radical left. That's my radical left. They have a witch hunt going against me and the empire and the AG and the prime minister and the speaker and the chief judge and everyone else. That's the radical left. It's a witch hunt. Lies, deceit, manipulation. That is not unity, loyalty, conformity, and obedience. So we have to fight our own, and we got to fight the colonies. And the mediator, or those who are supposed to play the roles of mediators, being the United Nations, are not doing a damn job. Because there's 19 non-self-governing territories who have been delayed their decolonization. They have been delayed their independence. Whereas they're supposed to accelerate the decolonization or the independence, sovereignty and independence without delay. It has been emphasized. It has been reiterated with Resolution 1654. Report annually on its findings and recommendations. Well, there ain't going to be no reports because there is no investigations, is there?
Mhm.
So then I'll ask the question again. This question is for the radical left AMPAC 2.0 pirate rogues. And this question is for the people on the floor right now as well. And anyone else who's listening. Should I trust the United Nations
No,
and the C-24?
no,
Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't check the boxes to prove to the world that we did at least adhere to the procedures. But since 2024, all the way up until now, we haven't gotten a response from the United Nations, have we?
no.
So then should I trust them? And the answer, again, is unequivocally no. Hell to the no. But we'll still do our part. But I'm looking at you sideways, Antonio Gutierrez. So therefore, it's left up to us to stand up in unity, loyalty, conformity, and obedience to push the narrative, to raise the question of Morocco once again, to bring awareness to our cause, period. And we got to keep pushing, and we got to keep pushing, and we got to keep pushing until we push through. And we will push through. They cannot deny us for too much longer. We got to grab a bullhorn and start screaming at the top of our lungs and let the whole world know, hey, 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 do not forget about us. We're back. There's things to talk about. The United States got to come to the table. Period. Or remain quiet, stay in the dark, because again, if the head of state, not a judge, not the so-called removed speaker, the head of state must speak for the state, not a judge, not no damn judge. That is absolutely inappropriate and incompetent. And it's a collusion because you would then be in the status of crossing the what? Crossing what? The line, what line? Crossing the line of respecting the separation of powers. Now you're acting like an administrator. Now you're acting like a head of state. Now you're acting like you are of the executive branch, when in all actuality, you're supposed to be in your chambers as a judge in the judicial branch. So you shouldn't be saying nothing, not even teaching no daggone classes. So don't go quiet saying, you see that? Unless I speak, the state is in, the state is still in a shallow grave. Yeah, well, I've been saying that. And it's me who's supposed to speak, not you. This is the problem. It's arrogance. It's ego. It's not decolonization. It's bad character, horrible character, a wicked disposition. And it is not to be tolerated, and it is not sustainable. Ain't nothing coming to no Impact 2.0. Nothing. I'll say it again. The best bet for them is to surrender and stand down. The resolution was adopted by a vote of 97 in favor, none against, with 4 abstentions. So 4 of them abstained, reflecting broad international support for advancing decolonization. 97. And no one went against it. But you have 4 people that say, well, you know, the United States was one of them. You know, well, I abstained. Go ahead, Buck. Why it matters. Tell us why it matters.
Why it matters. Resolution 1654 transformed Resolution 1514 from a declaration of principles into an ongoing UN process. Before 1654, the declaration proclaimed that colonialism should end. After 1654, the UN established a permanent mechanism to oversee and encourage implementation, making decolonization a continuing responsibility of the General Assembly.
It is a continued, perpetual. For as long as there's a United Nations, this responsibility exists upon the General Assembly. Period. So we got to force their hand.
Yeah.
How do we force their hands? Somebody give me how do we force their hands? I'm listening.
One, with the media, and keep pushing.
That's it. Thank you. That's it. The media. What Brother Polaris would say. I don't know if he, Brother Polaris, what do you be? What? Tell me, give me your mantra about court, the public court. What's your mantra? Brother Polaris is on. Can he even speak? Polaris on? Can he speak?
I don't see him in here.
Okay, I saw him in here earlier. He probably dropped off.
Okay.
Put him on the, what do you say? Which I've said it before. The court of public opinion. We got to bring the people into the conversation. What people? The people of planet Earth. Not just the Moors, not just the people in the West, all across planet Earth. So I need to talk to BBC. I need to talk to Al Jazeera. I need to talk to international news organizations. Because I need Burkina Faso to hear about it. I need the people of Nigeria to hear about it. I need the people of Russia to hear about it. I need the people of Brazil to hear about it. Check this out, y'all. Check this out. I need the people of Panama. I need the Panamanians to hear about it. Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, everybody. We got to go past the heads of states, past the so-called competent authorities, past all these regional organization blocks, and as well as the United Nations and any of its organs. We need to go straight to the people. We need the people to stand up and the whole world say, hey, hold up now. Y'all are violating the rights of the Moors in the West, and y'all been doing it for years. So then the question is, who is going to be the bold reporter to report on such matters? We're yet to find out. But somebody is out there. Someone is out there looking for the next biggest story. Someone is out there looking for the next biggest story. I don't know. It could be a college student that freshly graduated last year. that's trying to make his mark as a reporter. Oh, oh, this will put him, this will put him on the map. But before he breaks the story, or before she breaks the story, they would need to do what? Confirm the validity of our claim, right? Which means they would have to do what? Do a little research. And when they do a little research, it's going to blow their mind, especially if they're an American reporter or journalist, because they're going to say, wow, I never learned this in school. No, you didn't. None of us have. That's the Illuminati secret. Everyone has been sworn into that secret. Everyone took an oath to that secret. All those who are members of these secret societies, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Skull and Bones, the Scrolling Key, the Daughters of American Revolution, the Freemasons, the Shriners, etc., etc., Eastern Stars, right? Fraternities, all of them. And of course, not all their members, but the top tier elite members, yes, you daggone right, they know. The Boule, they're all sworn to secrecy. So who is going to expose the Illuminati secret? Well, Noble Drew Ali already did in 1913. But who's going to do it in 2026, 2027? That's a question for the floor. Who's going to expose the Illuminati secret? Who is responsible for exposing the Illuminati secret? I'm listening.
We are responsible.
Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Gratitude. Right? We are responsible for bringing awareness to our cause. The responsibility falls square on our shoulders, Morris. We can't depend on any foreign organization or international body of any sort. We got to depend on ourselves. We got to do it for ourselves. Relevance to questions of Morocco and historical treaties. Continue, brother.
Given your previous interest in Morocco, reparations and
No, rather than say repatriation.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Repatriations and decolonization. Resolution 1654 is relevant because it established the institutional framework through which claims involving colonial status, non-self-governing territories, and implementations of Resolution 1514 have been considered. However, Resolution 1654 itself does not make findings about the legal status of any specific state, treaty, or territory, including Morocco or the United States. Those questions require analysis of the specific treaties, historical facts, and subsequent international legal developments. If you're exploring arguments concerning the Empire of Morocco, treaty continuity, or claims of decolonization, we can also examine how Resolution 1654 relates to the UN Special Committee of 24, C24, Chapter 11 of the UN Charter, the UN list of non-self-governing territories, and the legal criteria the UN has used in decolonization cases.
Okay. So what does it say? Given your previous interest in Morocco, repatriation and decolonization, Resolution 1654 is relevant. So I've been having conversations with AI, right? It's relevant because it established the institutional framework through which claims involving colonial status, non-self-governing territories, and implementation of Resolution 1514 have been considered. However, Resolution 1654 itself does not make findings about the legal status of any specific state, treaty, or territory. Of course not, right? Including Morocco or the United States. Those questions require analysis of the specific treaties, historical facts, and subsequent international legal developments. Who does the analyzing? Who will be the one to analyze the treaties, historical facts? Well, really the treaties, but you can still add into it the historical facts and the subsequent international legal developments. Who would be the one that analyzed those elements?
The Moorish?
No, nope. The key word is legal developments. Legal. What
Attorney
organ?
General?
No.
Okay.
It will be an organ of the United Nations.
Oh, the United Nations. It would be
Again, legal.
Legal.
I know it's on the tip.
Think about it.
International law?
Well,
No.
it's
That was
talking
a
about
guess.
international law. So who would be the authority dealing with the legalities of international law?
The media?
Mm-mm. It's
No, man, no.
the
Think about it.
UN. It's
Again, it's
definitely the
legal.
judicial branch. Um, damn.
Think about
it. Who would be what organ?
those who study law, right? Who studies law? What um organ of the United Nations study law?
Colin Powell and the
Oh,
judges, man. What's their names again?
What judges?
What's the name of the judges for
The
the
Supreme Court.
not the Supreme Court,
No,
the other
no,
one?
no.
state attorney.
Again, who?
The state attorneys.
No, again, it's a organ of the United Nations. Stop thinking of the empire. It's not the empire, it's an organ of the United Nations who would analyze the specific treaties, historical facts, and subsequent international legal developments. Come on, Morris. Simple. You was close, Belinke. You said judges. Okay, come on, keep going. What organization has judges? Come on, Morris. Okay.
ICJ.
Thank you. Y'all kill me with this stuff. Yes, the ICJ. That's where the ICJ come in.
Yeah.
Y'all follow? Does that make sense, Buck? Does that make sense, Belinka? Does that make sense,
Yeah,
everybody?
Yeah. So
yeah.
reframe the question. Who would be
Well, I'm saying it says here those questions require analysis of the specific treaties, historical facts, and subsequent international legal developments. Then, the
Right.
question is, what organ of the United Nations will be the one to do the analysis of the
National Court
specific
of
treaties?
Justice? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's when they would petition them to give us the advisory opinion.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now, what is interesting is that here it says, if you're exploring arguments concerning the Empire of Morocco, treaty continuity, or claims of decolonization, we can also examine how Resolution 1654 relates to Chapter 11. What is Chapter 11? The Pacific Settlement of Disputes, right? Mediation, arbitration, conciliation, arbitration, adjudication, right? So now let's go further. Now ask the question. When you say Resolution 1654 itself does not make findings about the legal status of any specific state, treaty, or territory, does this mean that this is where the ICJ offers its advisory opinion? This is what I asked. It said, not exactly. So now let's listen. UN General Assembly Resolution 1654 and advisory opinions of the International Court of Justice are different legal mechanisms, of course, right? That can interact. They can interact, but they're different legal mechanisms. But one does not automatically lead to the other. Okay? So it goes on to say, here's the distinction. Resolution 1654 of 1961 established the UN Special Committee on Decolonization, later the C24. Its role is political and investigative. Political, monitoring implementation of Resolution 1514, gathering information, right, and making recommendations and reporting to the General Assembly. Let's read that again. Resolution 1654 of 1961, which again, it's it's reaffirming Resolution 1514, as we just uh, learned with the previous read of Resolution 1654. Its role is political and investigative, right? So they have to do investigations. Monitoring implementation of Resolution 1514, right? So their job, the C-24, as in the role of political and as a political and investigative body, is to monitor the implementation of Resolution 1514, gathering information, right? What kind of information? Sort of like whatever, any and all things that has been taking place with the empire. For example, you transmit that to the United Nations, to the Secretary General under Article 73. I forgot which part. I think it was Part E or D, in which it states that we must transmit regularly. But it's not us. It's really the administrative power that needs to transmit regularly to the United Nations any developments dealing with uh, the advancement of the uh, non-self-governing Moors, if you will. But in like manner, we can do the same. Islam, making recommendations and reporting to the General Assembly. So now the ICJ. The ICJ is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Remember that, Moors. The ICJ is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It issues judgments in contentious cases between states that have consented to its jurisdiction. So although you may be a member state, you don't automatically come under the jurisdiction of the ICJ unless you consent or accede to the ICJ statutes to then thereby give the ICJ jurisdiction to oversee any case that your state is involved in. Make sense?
Yeah.
Advisory opinions, when requested, right? When requested by authorized who? UN organs. Continue. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, UN organs or specialized agencies under Article 96 of the UN Charter and the ICJ statute.
So the advisory opinion. So you don't take the United States to the ICJ.
No.
It's decolonization. So therefore, the UN or the C-24 would request the advisory opinion on behalf
Excuse
of
me for a minute. Somebody at the door.
it. But you didn't have to do that. You could have just went, bro. just go, do your thing. This class is being recorded, sir. um, I lost my train of thought. Um, so the organ, the United Nations itself, the C-24, they request for the advisory opinion of the ICJ. Ain't no the Empire petition to the ICJ, or we're gonna take you to the ICJ. No. It doesn't work like that. It's decolonization. An advisory opinion is not a function of Resolution 1654 itself. Rather, it arises when an authorized body, such as the General Assembly or Security Council, asks the court a legal question. How they can work together. A typical sequence might be: 1, the General Assembly considers a decolonization issue, often informed by the C-24. So the C-24 goes to the General Assembly and say, "Oh man, we got a decolonization issue in which these Moors are saying that they have all this authority based on these so-called treaties, and we need to get an answer, right?" 2, if there is a significant legal question, the General Assembly may adopt a separate resolution requesting an ICJ advisory opinion. 3, the ICJ issues its legal analysis. And 4, the General Assembly may then adopt further resolutions taking the advisory opinion into account. So, Resolution 1654 created an institutional process for decolonization, while the ICJ provides legal opinions only when specifically asked. And if they're, but that question needs to come from who? The C-24 or the General Assembly, any of the organs of the United Nations, or not any, but specific ones, such as, like I said, the General Assembly or the C-24 or the uh, where is it at? I just read it. The Security Council. Examples. Now check this out, because the seditious, treasonous uh, member of AMPAC 2.0 spoke on the Western Sahara. On these matters, I don't think he spoke on Namibia, I mean. So, some well-known ICJ advisory opinions connected to decolonization include legal consequences for states of the continued presence of South Africa in Namibia, 1971, right? Western Sahara, 1975, and the legal consequences of the separation of the Tagos archipelago from Mauritius in 1965, and then later 2019. These are the 3 different cases connected to decolonization and an advisory opinion. In each of these cases, the General Assembly or another authorized UN organ requested the advisory opinion through a separate resolution. The ICJ was not acting because of Resolution 1654 itself, right? So the question that I asked obviously was misplaced. So this is the clarity, right? So it's not that Resolution 1654 is linked or connected to an advisory opinion, right? That wasn't really the question. It was based on what it stated. It said that however, Resolution 1654 itself does not make findings about the legal status of any specific state, treaty, or territory. Well, then the question was because, well, then who does? Which I already know who. But it wasn't necessarily to say that 1654 was connected to um, the ICJ, if that makes any sense what I'm saying here, if you guys understand what I'm saying. So let's get back here. And then it goes on to say, in your interest, if your interest is the legal framework surrounding Morocco, treaty continuity, or decolonization, we can also examine how the General Assembly has used ICJ advisory opinions to interpret principles such as self-determination, territorial integrity, and the legal consequences of colonial administration. Those opinions often carry significant legal weight, even though they are formally advisory rather than binding in the same way as judgments between states. So obviously, an advisory opinion is not necessarily binding, but it does carry significant weight, right? So what does it say? Let's read it again. If you're interested in the legal framework surrounding Morocco, right, treaty continuity or decolonization, we can also examine how the General Assembly has used ICJ advisory opinions to interpret principles such as self-determination, territorial integrity, and legal consequences of colonial administration. So in our case, we're looking at the legal uh, validity, the legal validity of our claim, which we already know what it is. The treaties are specific, and there is no getting around it. So we know what the advisory opinion would turn out to be. Yes, the Moors are, without a doubt, because, by the way, who else had already confirmed the, now listen to the question. Who has already confirmed the authority of the Moors in Morocco in 1952?
ICJ.
So the same ICJ that would give the advisory opinion, they're going to give that advisory opinion based on their own case in 1952.
Mm-hmm.
There's already case law for it, but it's not a matter of us petitioning the ICJ to take the United States to the ICJ. No, you're like, it's above your pay grade, sir. It is coming to the table with the C-24 in the United States, and then the C-24 or whatever other designated United Nations body or organ, such as the General Assembly, as an example, would then petition uh, the ICJ to bring forth their advisory opinion dealing with this legal matter, the legal part, the legal side of this matter, Islam, and that's the bottom line, right? So ain't no taking the United States to the ICJ. But then also, as we have already um, basically established, the resolution directed the committee to do what? Examine the progress made in implementing Resolution 1514. Okay? But then they also were to investigate conditions in colonial and non-self-governing territories. They haven't investigated anything dealing with us. It's like nobody cares about the Moors in America. It's sad. And that's the reason why it's left up to you. Because who else is going to care about you if it ain't you? You don't even act like you care about you, so why would anyone else care about you? You don't even care about each other. You're each other's enemies. The black woman don't get along with the black man. The black man don't get along with the black man. The black woman don't get along with the black woman. There's no harmony amongst us as a people. There's no unity. There's no loyalty. There's no conformity. There's no obedience. So then the rest of the world is, well, all right, well, it is what it is. But there's no excuse. Because they have received correspondence from the empire. And they ignored that. So what's the excuse for that? There's 2026. We've sent other correspondence. We've sent correspondence to the C-24. But let me make something clear. And it's paramount for me to make this clear. It's of the highest importance. Yes, they are in the status of tacit acquiescence, whereas they have just basically stayed quiet. Which means they also haven't sent any correspondence to say, and I quote, your claim is rejected because it's frivolous and it's fraudulent. Oh, we didn't get that either, did we? Ain't no one rejected us. Ain't no one said, oh, you're fraudulent. Ain't no one said, oh, this is not true, that you guys are not who you say you are. No one said that. They're just staying quiet. Everybody, shh. The Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, all these organizations, international organizations, are telling everyone, shh, ignore them. Maybe they'll go away. No, we're not going anywhere. The radical left, AMPAC 2.0, thought that we was going somewhere. It's 9 months. We were supposed to implode within 6 months. It's 9 months. We still got motion. We're still going. Al-Kabir is still here. I know you don't like it, but guess what else I do know? You respect it. Oh, they respect it. Oh, they respect it. Trust me when I tell you, I know these people. They respect it. They just don't like it. Because I'm ruining their fraudulent operations, their shenanigans. I'm all in the way. We are all in the way. It is we. Anytime you talk about the Sultan, you're talking about the we. And that's the reason why, as an example, where is it? Oh, that's good. We can use this. That is exactly why my signature says what? What does it say? Somebody read it.
Given under our hand and the seal of our office.
But emphasize the word our.
Given under our hand and the seal of our office.
Because the Sultan is we the people, and the people is we the Sultan. We're joined at the hip. Ain't no Sultan without the people. The people are the Sultan. It's just that you can't have um I have to do this for some reason because my this thing, the Zoom gets in the way big time. Okay, here we are. Come back here. Okay, this is right. The Zoom thingy gets in the way. Y'all have seen that I've been struggling with that since forever. Anyway, yeah. You know, you can't have a million. If there's a million nationals, you cannot have a million sultans. Somebody might say, well, I'm not even a politician. I don't want to be a politician. So those millions, that million of people, they come together and say, you, sir, will represent us on an international and a national level. Don't mess it up because we'll remove your behind. Because everyone is not meant to be a politician for all it's a sultan or a head of state, president, or whatever the head of state title might be. So by way of the democratic vote, you consolidate your power and authority and give it to one person to act on your behalf. So the power of the people is consolidated in the head of state. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Islam.
It's a lot of power too. That's why I'm Article 10. Let's remind everyone. I got to do something. Let me just do this. Okay, cool. Let's remind everyone, including the radical left, the radical left Impact 2.0. Let's remind them, if they don't like it, let's remind them of Article 10. That's why all the power rests with me or the office of the Sultan, because it's the consolidation of the power of the people. So when I say Islam empower to the people, I'm invoking the power of the people. The Sultan shall preside, and preside means preside. It means what it means. Does not lend itself to any seditious, nonsensical, incompetent misinterpretation, personal interpretation. You know, the Moors accepted my interpretation. Wrong, wrong, wrong answer. That just means that everyone is incompetent. Just because the incompetent weaklings accept your interpretation does not mean that the world shall do the same. I don't know what world or universe this man lives in. He lives in his own little world. Well, I'm about to bring him back into the real world. Let's wake up, sir. Come back to the real world. The world does not revolve around you. The Sultan shall preside over the prime minister as the absolute sovereign authority in all matters of political, legal, judicial, education, economic, social, and military affairs. Because that's the power and authority of who? We, the people. The people got the authority over all those institutions. That's the power of the people. But what kind of confusion would you have if you have a million sultans trying to oversee all those institutions? Right? And many of them, some are plumbers, some are electricians, some are engineers, some are nurses, some are doctors, some are businessmen, businesswomen, hairstylists, barbers. No, no, no. It doesn't work like that. That's anarchy. All those people come together to consolidate their power and authority over all these institutions and places it in one person. Y'all hear what I just said?
Yep.
Did y'all hear what I just said?
Yes,
Islam.
I heard it.
And that power lies in the office of the Sultan of Morocco. The office, not Abdul, the office. Abdul just has that authority or responsibility. Let's say that responsibility for 7 years. And then after that, vote in. If you get voted in, cool. If you don't, then cool too. Somebody else take that responsibility. This is how that works. So if you were to overthrow the Sultan, then you're overthrowing and undermining the sovereign will of the people. Did y'all hear what I said? If you overthrow or attempt to overthrow the Sultan, then that means you're undermining the sovereign authority of the people. It's the people who decided who the Sultan is. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 people or if it's 100 people or if it's 30 people or if it's 10 million people. The people is still the people. If you didn't get a chance to vote because you wasn't a national or whatever the reason is, hey, it is what it is. You'll get a chance the next time around. So if you don't like whoever those people chose, then it's incumbent upon you to be patient with that person's term limit. So then now you can vote in the next person that you want to be the Sultan. But it's not guaranteed. Why is it not guaranteed? This is a trick question. Let me see if y'all paying attention. Why wouldn't it be guaranteed?
Somebody else might get voted in.
What was that?
People might vote someone else in.
Okay, yep.
It's ultimately up to the people.
It is. But what I'm saying, it was not guaranteed. So, like, let's say, okay, I don't like Abdul. He's too mean. And I'm sensitive. I'm talking about a man. These are men talking. He's too sensitive. I mean, I'm too sensitive. He's too hard on us. Right? He's too hard. He's too rough on us. I'm talking about men. So then he says, so that same man says, well, I don't like him. I'm gonna vote in Kendon. It's not guaranteed because your vote only accounts for one vote. That's why it's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't like me and you want to see Kendon, but then everybody else like me and they want to see me. Then you're still back to square one.
Yeah.
Then you're still back to square one. And you're going to have to be patient for another 7 years. A lot of people didn't want to see Trump in this time around. They're going to have to be patient for another 4 years. That's how it works. That's a democracy. The majority wins. Whatever the majority say is how it goes. And whoever falls in the minority, tough luck. You're going to have to be patient and tough it out for the next however many years that head of state has his term limit. That's basic government 101. That's basic democracy 101. And it means nothing about mob rule or it's an unum sanctum operation. It's an unum sanctum policy to carry out nefarious operations against the Moors. That's Tashariq Bey. No, that's not what democracy means. Let's look it up. Where is my internet? I got so many things up. Wow. So many things up.
Pause.
Let's look up. What you think, brother?
It's all good. It's all.
I don't know what's going on. Okay, here we are. You see how that bottom thing pops up when I have everything down? It's weird. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know. I'm not an internet guru dude. Let's look up democracy. This is the basic, not even Black's Law Dictionary, just basic Google. Democracy is a system of government in which supreme power is vested in the people. It doesn't say nothing about mob rule. It doesn't say nothing about some unum sanctum policies. Truth and falsehood strangely mixed amongst the Moors. And there ain't no truth in that. So it's just straight BS. It's not even like half true and half lie. No, it's absolute BS. Democracy don't mean nothing other than a system of government in which supreme power is vested in the people and exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation, usually involving periodic free and fair elections. The concept originated from the Greek words demos, the people, and kratos, power. Now let's look at republic. Republic. Let's see. Encyclopedia definition and history facts. Let's look at that. Form of government in which a state is ruled by representative of the citizen body. So it's a form of government. So it's like the Moors wanted to be a republic so bad, but then what you're really saying, see, the Moors say, well, it needs to be a republic. And so their reasons for saying that is because they want the power to rest in the people. Okay, well, then that's the democracy. The democracy is where the power rests in the people. The republic is a form of government in which a state is ruled by representatives of the citizen body. Modern republics are founded on the idea that sovereignty rests with the people. Everything goes back to the people through who is who is included and excluded from the category of the people has varied across history. Now it's giving us a whole history. I just want a definition. Because citizens do not govern the state themselves, but through representatives. Republics may be distinguished from direct democracy, though modern representative democracies are by and large republics. The term republic may also be applied to any form of government in which the head of state is not uh, a hereditary monarch. You see? So I'm not a monarch because it's a social republic. It's a democratic social republic and a secular state and an indivisible state. We're not to be divided. Indivisible means undivided. Back to the Constitution. Back to the Constitution. Article 1, preamble. Where is it? No, it's not in the preamble. It's in, yeah, here it is, in chapter 1. Morocco shall be an indivisible, secular, democratic, and social republic. What does indivisible mean? Let's go back. And let me show you the foolishness of our people.
Undividable.
Correct. Indivisible means incapable of being divided, separated, or broken into smaller parts. What just happened? What just happened in October? We were divided. By who? William O'Neill. William O'Neill divided us up. He brought us from being indivisible to now being divisible. So we were divided, separated, broken up. So we came to a fork in the road the same way he has a forked tongue. So they took the treacherous left path, the left-hand path, and we took the righteous right-hand path. Meaning that we're the de jure, they are the fraudulent. Because we intercepted a seditious, treasonous operation. based in a controlled opposition operation, and brought back the indivisible concept to the principles of the Constitution and the constitutional order of the empire. This is simple stuff. This was a cakewalk. I don't know who he thought he was dealing with, but he should have known better. And he did know better. But I guess sometimes you just take a shot in the dark and see what happened. Well, this is what happened. FAFO. If anyone knows what that acronym means, FAFO. I can't say it. Got to maintain a certain level of professionalism.
Islam.
But it's called FAFO. Any questions, comments, or concerns as it relates to anything, or specifically Resolution 1654? The floor is open. I yield before we close out. Floor is open. Anything? Anyone? No? All right, we got 8 minutes before 10 o'clock. So we'll be closing out at a decent time. So, in closing, Resolution 1654 reaffirmed Resolution 1514. And it had to be reaffirmed because the colonial administrators were essentially in dereliction of their duties. And they still are. Show y'all something. Non-self-governing territories list. There's 17 non-self-governing territories worldwide. These are classified as regions whose people have not yet attained a full measure of self-government. They are administered by the United Kingdom, the United States. So the United Kingdom has 10. The United States has 3. France has 2. New Zealand has 1. And the Western Sahara, which currently has no recognized administering power. So they are basically on to themselves. Look at the list. So the United Nations, United Kingdom, has 10 of them under their belt. Anguilla, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Falkland Islands, Montserrat, Pitcairn, St. Helena, Turks and Caicos Island, and Gibraltar. Does anyone know about Gibraltar as it relates to the Moors? Then General Tariq crossed the Strait of Gibraltar to go into Europe in 711.
Islam.
Yes or no?
Tariq Gibraltar. True.
Indeed.
Islam.
All right, so they got 10. The United States got 3. That's officially recognized by the C-24. American Samoa, Guam, United States Virgin Islands, and the Empire of Morocco. So let's add that to the list. Even if the C-24 doesn't, we do. We recognize it to be the case because it is the case. Everyone else just does not want to raise that question. We've been buried alive, but it's just merely a shallow grave. It would have been this is why it's divine. This is why it's a divine movement first and national second. Because just as well, we could have been buried 6 feet deep. That's death. That means you ain't never coming back. It was just a shallow grave. That means you was just unconscious. Why is it that we're unconscious? We talked about it earlier. It's a fraction. What is it?
3/5.
Thank you. Because we have been stripped of our nationality and now we're divine creed. That's it. That's all. So now we're sitting here buried in a shallow grave because we don't have a nationality in our divine creed, so therefore we lack knowledge of self. That's why it's a shallow grave. It would have been okay. It would have been 6 feet deep if they had done what with that fraction? It wouldn't have been 3/5. What would have been the fraction? And that number may not exist. I don't know. But let's roll with it anyway. We would have been dead if the fraction was what? 3/5 means you're basically in a shallow grave, which means you can always come to the knowledge of self, and now you just stand up because the dirt is just basically barely on your chest or whatever, right? You move your hand and your hands is outside of the grave. You sit up and you're out the grave. It's not 6 feet deep. So if it was 6 feet deep, what would have been that fraction?
0.5.
Think about it. Say it again.
0.5.
That's my
Exactly.
thought too.
Exactly. That's why I said, and I don't know if that even exists. Zero, 0/5. I'm not even sure. But that's what it would have been. That means that we don't have our body, our spirituality, our spirit or our soul, nationality or divine creed. We just dead. Thank you very much, sister. Correct. So it's just 3/5. That means all we need is to regain two of the five. And that's knowledge of self. And then it's just a recollection thing. You recollect. You just got to remember. Remember your nationality. Remember your divine creed. That's why it's a shallow grave. It's just shallow. It's not the end all be all. We can always come back into power, and we are doing exactly that. The Empire of Morocco, under my leadership, still has motion. We're still going at it. We're never going to stop. Even if I'm in Panama, it's not going to stop. If he deposed me like the French did Sultan Muhammad in 1953, it's not going to make a difference. Panama has Wi-Fi. Right now, I could be in Panama. How you know I'm in Georgia? Right now, I could be in Pluto. Let me not say that. I'm exaggerating. Right now, I could be in Moscow. I could be in Brazil. I could be in South Africa. I could be in China. You don't know where I'm at. So what difference would it be if I'm in Panama? It ain't gonna make no difference. And Panama is in Morocco. It's not like Panama is like uncivilized and not advanced and they have no Wi-Fi, no computers. My whole family still lives in Panama and they're on Facebook. So it's like, and other social media networks, platforms. So it's not gonna make a difference. So, dude, you're not gonna intimidate me. There is no intimidating me. So France has two: French, Polynesia, and New Caledonia. New Zealand has one, Tokelau, and then you have the Western Sahara. Right? How long? Um, how do I ask that? Let's see, real quick before we close out. How long have these countries? Let's see if we see. We did a class on this already, by the way. I don't recall. Let me see. Let's just ask it. Um, like let's say here. Let me see. It says here, what are the 17 non-self-governing territories? Um, how long? Have these non-self-governing territories? How long have these non-self-governing territories? Okay, been around since 1946. The UN's formal list of non-self-governing territories has existed since 1946, making these territories colonial designations roughly 80 years old. However, in a real-world historical context, these territories have been under colonial administration for centuries, tracking back to the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. The 17 remaining non-self-governing territories and their specific classifications, lengths include. Since 1946, the original 1946 list: Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Falkland Islands, uh, Montserrat, Pitcairn Islands, St. Helena, Turks and Caicos Islands, and the United States Virgin Islands since 1946. That's even before Resolution 1654. 1946, y'all. Historically, many of these islands were claimed by the Spanish, British, and French empires during early global expansion. Bermuda was settled by the English in 1609. This is where discernment and critical thinking comes in. Because if this says historically many of these islands were claimed by the Spanish, British, and French empires, first of all, how does the Spanish, British, and French, I wouldn't say empires, but countries relate to the empire? How do they relate to the empire? Come on, Moors, you know the answer to this. It's not even a trick question. How does Spain, Great Britain, and France relate to the empire?
They part of the signatory powers.
Yeah.
Thank you. So they're subordinate to the empire. But then let's go further. What else does it say? During the early global expansion, Bermuda was settled by the English in 1609. 1609. Settled by the British. What does King George III look like? Has anyone seen the portrait of King George III? The original portrait of him?
Islam, he a Moor.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How about Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg? That's where you get Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County. What about Charlotte, Queen Charlotte? What is she?
A
She's
yellow
also a Moor.
bone.
He said a yellow bone. It's a red bone.
Yeah.
She's a sister. She's a he said a yellow bone. Oh, y'all be killing. He said yellow bone. Okay, fair enough. Like sister, light skinned sister. Okay, fine. So then we're talking about 1609. So what was England in 1609? Bro, I keep trying to tell y'all, all those countries, all
They were
those,
melanated.
what was that?
They was all melanated.
These were Moorish countries.
Yep.
They ain't no white people countries. These are Moorish countries. So the Moors have had these territories as a non-self-governing territory since 1609 as an example. During the time of the empire.
Yep.
We don't know what we don't know. There's so much more to this story. There's so much more to the story of the Empire of Morocco.
Yep.
And the confusion comes in when you have all this whitewashing. Everybody that's been whitewashed was actually a Moor. Beethoven was a Moor. Was the other guy? Mozart was a Moor. Uh, uh, King James III was a Moor. They're all Moors. William III, Wilhelm II of Germany was a Moor. And that was in 1905 when he was supporting the sovereignty and independence of the Empire of Morocco against France and everyone else that was seeking to undermine the empire, in case y'all forgot about that particular class. There's more to this story. And this is what I was just saying earlier. The so-called white, European, whatever, Caucasian faces that you see holding the post as heads of state, etc., are Mamluks. Let's do this again one more time before we close out. Here's a Mamluk. Mamluks were a powerful social and military caste of enslaved mercenaries slave soldiers and freed slaves who ruled Egypt and Syria from 1250 to 1517 before maintaining significant regional influence into the 19th century. Renowned for their elite martial skills, they famously defeated the Mongols and da 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 da. That's not what I'm looking for. Where is it right here? Originating as a class of enslaved non-Arabs, predominantly Turkic and Circassian peoples. They were purchased as young boys, converted to Islam. So when you see that, you know you're talking about the Moors. So the Moors bought them as young boys, converted them to Islam, and heavily trained in martial and administrative duties. So isn't a president an administrator? Mm-hmm. So they were taught martial and administrative duties. Since they were completely uprooted from their native societies, Mamluks exhibited intense loyalty to their masters, ultimately rising to overthrow the Ayyubid dynasty and establish the formidable Mamluk Sultanate with its capital in Cairo. Um, where's the other definition? That's an AI definition. This is what they look like, be wearing fezzes and stuff. Um, there's a definition that gives a more direct. Oops, clicked on that by accident. Um, where is it? Maybe it's here. Let's see here. Read more. Oh, Mamluks were non-Arab, ethnically diverse, mostly Turkic, Caucasian, and Southeastern European, enslaved mercenary slave soldiers and free slaves who were assigned high-ranking military and administrative duties in the Muslim world. They were purchased as military slaves converted to Islam and trained in martial and courtly skills. Upon completion of their training, they were freed but remained part of the ruling military caste, forming elite regiments and, in some periods and regions, rising to sovereign power. The most enduring Mamluk legacy was the kingly military class in medieval Egypt, which developed from the ranks of slave soldiers. Originally, the Mamluks were slaves of Turkic origins from the European steppe, but the institution of military slaves spread to include Mongols, all these Ashkenazis, Georgians, Armenians, Russians, right? That means Putin is a Mamluk. They also recruited from the Egyptians, the Mamluk, Gulam phenomenon. David Ayalon, dubbed the creation of the specific warrior class, was of great political influence. For one thing, it endured for nearly 1,000 years from the 19th century. Over time, Mamluks became a powerful military knightly class in various Muslim societies that were controlled by dynastic Arab rulers. Who were the original Arabs? Who are the Arabs originally? The
The
Moors.
Mamluks.
No, the Moors are the Arabs.
Oh, the Moors of the Arab, yeah.
The Arabs that are now claiming the Arab stuff that are pale, those are not the Moors were always known as the Arabs. Don't the pale Arabs okay, let me ask you this. In modern times, isn't Islam associated with the pale Arabs?
Yeah.
Okay, then there you go. That's the answer. Discernment, critical thinking. Anything dealing with Islam or Muslim, that's what Barry Soetoro, aka Obama, said. It was the Muslims who lit the torch. Well, he wasn't talking about Arabs, was he?
Still wouldn't.
Okay, then. Muslims is directly linked to Moors, and Arabs are too, or the identity of an Arab. So they were Muslim. They don't want to say, see, you got to read between the lines with stuff when it comes on to our history. They don't want to this. They don't want to. It's the Illuminati secret. They don't want to display this. They don't want to just expose directly what's what. So you got to read between the lines. So it says over time, Mamluks became a powerful military knightly class in various Muslim societies that were controlled by dynastic rat. Who had the dynasties? How many dynasties did the did the Empire of Morocco have? Like, I don't know how many. The final dynasty was the Alawite dynasty. You have the Almoravid dynasty and so many other dynasties of the past. That's a Moorish thing. So they were ruled by the Moors. They're just not saying that. They're saying Arab rulers and stuff like that. That's what the Mamluks are. They're administrative. They have skills. They have been placed in administrative and military services. So when you say administrative, you're talking about heads of states. Islam. So that's why I say
Oh,
all these so-called European heads of states, they work for Moors. So all those so-called countries, right, that has colonized these territories, it's the Moors who's doing it. It's our own people doing it. And they're using the white man as a proxy to do it. Wake up and smell the coffee. So to conclude, Moors, we're going to complete the mission, but it's dependent upon you. Because you cannot depend on the ICJ. You can't depend on the United Nations. You can't depend on nobody but yourself. No one is going to come to save you. And Jesus is not coming down through the skies in a chariot with wings and a crown and whatever picture they painted in your mind about this. They painted a picture in your mind of him having blonde hair and blue eyes, didn't they? When in all actuality, this is what Jesus looked like. Or I ain't gonna put Jesus, just Black Madonna. Just type Black Madonna. Type Black Madonna. Oh, well, damn. Is that Jesus and Mary?
Yeah.
That's a real image of Jesus and Mary. But they tell you that he's some white dude. So they have whitewashed everything to cause further confusion, which is what? The total disruption of national unity. So now you got Florida Evans telling JJ, take down that Black Jesus. I want my white Jesus. Even though the Bible, the book itself says, Harold will eyes of fire, feet of burnt brass. That's the mental manipulation that we have endured as 3/5 human beings. That's the proper context. That's the proper context and concept that would lead you to freedom, not voting. Nobody should care nothing about no damn voting because all you're doing is voting in your oppressors over and over and over again. It's a cycle that's being passed down from generation to generation. That's the generational curse that needs to be broken. It has nothing to do with finance. It has to do with your knowledge of self. You regain your knowledge of self. You come back to being 5/5 of a human being, and then now you get to start charging taxes, and you'll be back to being the wealthiest people on planet Earth all over again. The finance is not the problem. The problem is your lack of knowledge of self as a 3/5 human being. Come back to self, and you'll get back to the paper. Islam. So with that, we'll close out.
Islam.
I enjoyed the class. I hope everyone learned something great. We'll reconvene again next week for another open discussion class with yours truly, the legitimate sovereign of the Moorish Empire, yours truly, Abdul Smith Al-Kabir. Peace, love, and light. We'll see you next week, Moors. Long live the Empire and His Majesty the Sultan. Peace and love.
Long live the Empire and His
long live the
Majesty
Empire,
the
His Majesty the
Sultan.
Sultan. Peace and love,
Islam.
y'all.
The
Peace and
Sultan.
love.
Love.
Peace and love.